The silence that hangs over the burial mound of Qin Shi Huang is not one of peace, but of a watchful, brooding stillness. For over 2,000 years, this earthen pyramid has guarded its secrets under the Shanxi sun, a silent sentinel daring the modern world to disturb the slumber of China's first emperor. To stand before it is to feel the weight of history, not as a dusty relic, but as a palpable, unresolved mystery. This is not merely an archaeological site. It is a sealed vault, a challenge, and a warning. The world knows what likely lies within a sprawling, subterranean universe of unparalleled riches, a map of the empire with rivers of quicksilver, the body of the man who forged China from warring states. Yet, no one has entered the central tomb. No shovel has breached its core. No explorer has laid eyes on the emperor's sarcophagus. The question that has echoed for centuries is a simple one. Why? The answer is a tapestry woven from ancient paranoia, staggering technological prowess, a river of poison, and a curse that may be more science than superstition. Our story begins not with a tomb, but with a man of terrifying ambition. In 246 BC, a boy of 13 named Ying Zhang ascended the throne of the Qin state. The world he inherited was one of relentless chaos, the so-called Warring States period, where 7 powerful kingdoms devoured each other in a cycle of brutal conflict. But Ying Zhang was no ordinary boy. He was possessed of a singular, iron-willed vision to unify all under heaven under one rule, his rule. For the next 25 years, he pursued this goal with a ruthless efficiency that stunned his enemies. His armies, disciplined and seemingly inexhaustible, marched forth. One by one, the rival states of Han, Zhao, Wei, Ka, Yan, and Qi fell. In 221 BC, the last resistance crumbled. For the first time in history, China was a single, unified empire. Ying Zhang bestowed upon himself a new title, one that would resonate through the millennia. Qin Shi Huang died the 1st August Emperor of Qin. He was a whirlwind of standardization, imposing a single script for writing, uniform axle widths for carts, a unified system of weights and measures, and even decreeing that all arrows shot by his archers must be the exact same length. He connected existing fortifications into the First Great Wall, a monumental project that cost countless lives. He was, by any measure, a tyrant, burying scholars alive for their dissent and burning books to control history. But he was also obsessed with the one enemy he could not conquer, death. The emperor grew increasingly terrified of his own mortality, dispatching alchemists and fleets on quests to find the elixir of life. As these quests failed, his focus turned to the one kingdom he could control, absolutely, the one he would rule in the afterlife. And so in 246 BC, the very year of his ascension, the work began. The scale of the project is almost incomprehensible. Historical records state that over 700,000 conscripts toiled for nearly 4 decades to build his eternal palace. The entire complex is not a simple tomb, but a necropolis, a microcosm of his empire covering nearly 60 square kilometers. The most famous part, the Terracotta Army, was discovered by stunned farmers in 1974, life-sized, individually unique, and armed with real bronze weapons. These thousands of soldiers stand in battle formation, a silent clay legion guarding the emperor's eastern flank. But they are merely the outer perimeter, the fancy welcome mat to a house of profound darkness. The primary source for what lies within comes from the grand historian Sima Qian, writing about a century after the emperor's death. His account is both a treasure map and a horror story. He describes the main tomb as a vast underground palace, with a ceiling inlaid with pearls to simulate the constellations, and a floor carved with a map of the empire. The geographical features, the rivers, were not merely painted. They were, according to Sima Qian, recreated using flowing mercury. Using mechanical devices, the rivers and the Great Sea were made to flow and circulate, he wrote. The emperor's sarcophagus, he claimed, was placed in the center of this mercury empire. But the final sentences of his description are the most chilling. To protect the tomb, he wrote, artisans built crossbows and other weapons rigged to shoot automatically if anyone should enter. They used mercury to fashion the rivers and the ocean, engineering them to flow mechanically. Above was the entire array of the heavenly bodies, below the features of the earth. With whale-fat candles lit, the emperor could enjoy an eternal night that was as bright as day. Then came the final gruesome act. When the emperor's body was laid to rest, and the immense treasures were sealed away with him, a terrible order was given. Sima Qian records, for the sake of secrecy. After the artisans and workers had completed their work and the treasures were stored away, the middle and outer gates were shut. Then the exit gate was closed, trapping all the artisans and workers inside. Not one came out. They were buried alive, entombed with their emperor. Their voices silenced forever to keep the tomb's secrets. This single act cemented the tomb's reputation as a place of not just death, but of betrayal and a vengeful spirit. For centuries, the tomb was a legend, its location largely forgotten. Then, in the 20th century, science began to catch up with the myth. In the 1980s, Chinese archaeologists conducted a series of scientific surveys of the burial mound. What they found was both a stunning confirmation of Sima Qian's story and the genesis of the modern fear that keeps the tomb sealed. They took soil samples from the mound itself. The results were shocking. The mercury concentration in the soil was dramatically higher than in the surrounding area, over 100 times the normal background level. The pattern of this mercury pollution was not random. It seemed to trace the geographical layout of the Qin Empire itself, mirroring the flow of its great rivers. Sima Qian was right. There is, without a doubt, an immense amount of highly volatile liquid mercury sloshing beneath that mound. This discovery changed everything. It transformed the tomb from a simple archaeological puzzle into a hazardous materials site of the highest order. Mercury, or quicksilver, is known to ancient alchemists as a key component in elixirs of immortality. Qin Shi Huang himself may have died from mercury poisoning after consuming such potions. But in the confined space of a tomb, its vapors are a swift and deadly neurotoxin. A modern excavator, upon breaching the inner chamber, could be met with a plume of vapor that would cause shaking, madness, and a painful death, a scientific reality that mirrors the ancient tales of a curse. The automated crossbows may have rusted into dust, but the emperor's primary defense mechanism is as potent today as it was in 210 BC. Consider the immense technical and ethical challenges. How does one safely excavate a structure the size of a palace, filled with untold organic and inorganic treasures, while containing what is essentially a toxic river? The mercury would have to be meticulously pumped out and contained before any archaeological work could begin, a process that would be incredibly dangerous and could itself cause irreversible damage to the artifacts within. A sudden structural collapse could release a deadly cloud. Furthermore, our current technology, while advanced, may not be sufficient to preserve what is found. When the terracotta warriors were first excavated, they were painted in vivid, lifelike colors. Upon exposure to the dry air, that paint flaked and vanished within minutes. The loss was permanent. The silks, wooden artifacts, and even the emperor's own remains inside the main tomb would be infinitely more fragile. The director of the museum site once said, "Our current technology isn't ready. It's better to keep the tomb as it is for later generations." It is a profound act of humility and acknowledgement that sometimes the greatest wisdom is to leave well enough alone. This prudence is backed by a deep-seated cultural reverence. In China, there is a powerful taboo against disturbing the dead. To open the tomb would not just be a scientific endeavor. It would be a profound act of desecration. The Chinese government, reflecting this sentiment, has adopted a firm policy of protective excavation. They will not open the tomb without a compelling reason and near absolute certainty that its contents can be preserved. It is a patience that spans generations, a stark contrast to the hasty, treasure-hunting excavations of the colonial era. And so, the mound remains a silent challenge. The mysteries within are tantalizing. Is the emperor's body, sought after by modern scientists for DNA analysis, still intact? Are the libraries of bamboo slips, which could rewrite the history of the Qin dynasty, preserved in the anaerobic environment? Are the booby traps, those automatically shooting crossbows, still functional, or have they long since decayed? The greatest mystery of all is the man himself. Qin Shi Huang was a figure of such monumental contradictions, a unifier and a destroyer, a visionary and a tyrant. The The final, undisturbed context of his burial would provide an unparalleled window into his psyche, into the very moment China was born. The forbidden tomb of China's first emperor is therefore not forgotten, but actively, respectfully left alone. It is a covenant with the past. The mercury rivers flow on in their mechanical cycle. The pearl constellations glitter in the eternal darkness, and the Terracotta Army stands its silent, eternal watch. The tomb is a perfect sealed time capsule, and its unbroken silence is its greatest treasure. We are not meant to see it yet. The world must wait until the day our wisdom matches our curiosity and our technology can honor. Rather than destroy the legacy of the emperor who dreamed of ruling for 10,000 generations, until that day comes, the first emperor rests. Safe in his poisonous palatial dark, his final victory over time and intruders still complete.